I wasn't supposed to be home until Sunday. A delayed shipment at work had forced the trip to end early, and I thought surprising my wife would be the perfect way to close out a stressful week. My hand lingered on the doorknob as I imagined her smile when she saw me standing there unannounced. But the smile I pictured was not the one I heard. From the top of the staircase drifted a sound I knew as well as my own heartbeat, a light, breathless laugh that had once been mine alone to summon. It was joined by a deeper voice, low and teasing, a voice I'd never heard in my home before. The sound carried with it the faint scent of cologne, sharp, musky, undeniably masculine. For a moment, I stood frozen in the entryway, bag still slung over my shoulder, the air suddenly too thick to breathe. My first thought was absurd. Maybe she had invited friends over. Maybe I was wrong. But then the laughter came again, wrapped in a softness I hadn't heard in months, and my stomach tightened with a cold certainty. I set my bag down as quietly as possible. My footsteps barely whispered across the hardwood as I moved toward the staircase. The closer I climbed, the clearer the voices became, his confident murmur, her answering giggle, the creak of our bed frame. Halfway up, I stopped. I didn't need to see. But my mind refused to grant me that mercy. I reached the bedroom door and pressed it open just enough for the light to slip through. They were on the bed, her hair spilling across the pillow, his hand resting exactly where mine had so many nights before. Their eyes met in a way that made my chest burn, and in that instant, every argument, every late night working, every cold shoulder made perfect, agonizing sense. I stepped back before either of them noticed, pulling the door shut without a sound. My hands trembled, but not from shock anymore. The trembling was something else, something colder, sharper. Rage is loud. Revenge, I discovered, is quiet. I walked back downstairs, my mind already working in fast, precise turns. The pain sat in my chest like a live wire, but beneath it, another feeling stirred, focus. The kind that comes when there's no room left for hesitation. At the bottom of the stairs, I paused, listening. They were still upstairs, still laughing, still believing they were safe. My lips curled, not into a smile, but into the smallest, hardest line of resolve. They thought I had walked into my own house as a victim. They had no idea I had just stepped into it as something else entirely. By the time they came down those stairs, they wouldn't be walking into the same world they thought they owned. They were upstairs, tangled in the illusion that my absence meant safety. I was downstairs, already stripping that safety from them thread by thread. First, I reached for the kitchen counter, where we always tossed our keys and wallets. Hers was there. His too, cheap leather, bulging with cards, and a driver's license I didn't recognize. I slid them both into my jacket pocket. The act felt surgical, not impulsive. Next came the ring. My wedding ring had sat faithfully on my finger for 7 years, but now it felt like a shackle. I slid it off and placed it dead center on the counter, where she'd see it the moment she came down. No note. No words. Just absence speaking louder than any outburst. I pulled out my phone, thumb moving with mechanical precision. The home security app loaded instantly. I navigated to the bedroom feed. Sure enough, the camera caught everything. Not in lurid detail, but clear enough to leave no room for denial. I downloaded the footage, saving it twice. Once to the cloud, once to a separate hard drive. This wasn't for me. This was for later, when her inevitable lies needed burning to the ground. Then came the money. I logged into our joint account, fingers tapping in the numbers I'd memorized long ago. She had no idea I knew the secondary password she used just in case. I transferred every cent I could legally claim into my personal account. It wasn't about greed. It was about making sure her fresh start came without my hard-earned foundation. I scrolled to my contacts and found Tom, my oldest friend, a locksmith who owed me more than a few favors. I called. Emergency, I said, voice calm as steel. Front door. Now. He didn't ask questions. Tom never did. While I waited, I listened. Upstairs, the rhythm of movement changed, no longer playful. The shuffle of feet on carpet, low conversation, the sound of someone searching for clothes. My heartbeat stayed steady. Every second they lingered gave me more time to shape the knife I was going to twist. A car pulled up outside, Tom's van. I stepped to the door, letting him in without a word. His eyes flicked to my face, reading enough in it to keep his mouth shut. He went to work, tools clicking softly against the lock. Halfway through, I heard the creak of the top step. They were coming down. The air in the house felt different now, thicker, charged. The kind of stillness right before a storm breaks. My pulse didn't race. If anything, it slowed, every beat deliberate, matching the precision of Tom's tools. They still thought I was the man who had left for a trip yesterday. They were about to meet the man who had come home today. And that man had no intention of letting them leave the same way they arrived. The first thing they saw when they reached the bottom of the stairs was the locksmith. The second was me, sitting at the kitchen table, hands folded, watching. She froze halfway into the room, a half-buttoned blouse hanging open at the collar. He stood just behind her, shirtless, trying to mask his discomfort with a smirk that didn't survive more than a second. "You're home," she said, voice light but shaking. It wasn't a question. It was a warning to herself. "I am," I replied. My voice was low, measured. "You brought company." The man stepped forward, bristling. "Look, man, Don't," I said, cutting him off without raising my voice. The weight in my tone was enough to make him falter. I nodded toward the counter. "See that?" Both their eyes followed my gesture to the ring lying alone in the center. The silence after was the kind that makes skin itch. She opened her mouth, but I didn't let her speak. "You didn't just cheat. You brought him here. To my house. To our bed. You thought I'd never know." The locksmith's tools clicked behind me, steady as a metronome. The sound filled the space between my sentences like punctuation. I could scream. I continued. I could throw things, break things. But that would give you too much. Instead, I'm giving you exactly what you wanted. A life without me. I stood and walked to the pantry, pulling out 2 grocery bags. I tossed them onto the counter. "Clothes are in there. Shoes, too. Everything else stays." Her eyes widened. "You can't just—" "I can," I said, stepping closer. "And I am." The man's smirk had vanished completely now. He glanced toward the front door just as Tom straightened, announcing, "New locks are in." Perfect timing. I opened the door and gestured toward the outside. "Go. Both of you." She hesitated, as if waiting for me to break, waiting for some crack in the calm so she could wedge herself into it with excuses. But there was nothing left to break. When neither of them moved, I added, "If you're still standing here when I close this door, I call the police and hand them the footage. Your choice." That did it. She grabbed the bags, brushed past me without a word. He followed, avoiding my eyes. They stepped onto the porch, and I closed the door behind them. Tom's final click of the lock was louder than any slammed door I could have managed. Through the peephole, I watched them walk down the driveway, their pace quickening with every step. It wasn't rage that filled me then, it was relief. They had thought they could walk through my home and leave unchanged. Instead, they walked out stripped of comfort, control, and the belief that betrayal comes without consequences. The silence after they left was unlike any I'd ever known in this house. Not hollow. Not lonely. Clean. Tom packed up his tools, glanced at me once, and simply said, "You did the right thing." Then he was gone, leaving me alone in a space that suddenly felt lighter. I walked through each room, almost expecting to find traces of them, her perfume, his cologne. But the air was already clearing. The bedroom, once heavy with the weight of what I'd seen, was stripped down to its essentials. The blankets, still rumpled from their presence, would be gone by morning. That night, I didn't sleep much. Not from regret. There wasn't an ounce of that in me, but from a strange, electrifying calm. My phone buzzed occasionally. Messages from her, each one swinging wildly between anger, pleading, and denial. I didn't respond. By morning, the footage was already uploaded to a secure folder. I sent the link to her parents, her sister, a handful of mutual friends. Not with commentary. Not with malice. Just the truth. Words can be twisted. Video cannot. The reactions came quickly. Mutual friends stopped following her. Her sister texted me, "I'm so sorry. I had no idea." Her father didn't text at all, but I knew from silence alone that the bridge between them was burning. As for the man she'd chosen, his name started circulating in whispers. He vanished from her social media within a week, deleted accounts entirely within 2. I didn't need to know the details. Some exits are better left unseen. In the days that followed, I dismantled the pieces of my life that had been built for 2. The joint account was closed. The photos were boxed up and stored in the garage, not out of nostalgia, but as proof, should I ever need it. The bed was replaced, the sheets burned. I redecorated in a way that erased her entirely. New colors, new furniture, a different arrangement for the living room. It was still my home, but now it looked like it belonged to someone who had chosen it for himself. 2 weeks later, I booked a trip I'd been putting off for years, a solo hike in the mountains. No signal, no obligations. Just me, my thoughts, and the quiet certainty that I'd made the right choice. People say betrayal changes you. They're wrong. Betrayal doesn't change you. It reveals you. It strips away the illusion of who you thought you were and leaves the raw truth behind. And the truth about me was this: I wasn't someone who tolerated disrespect. I wasn't someone who begged for scraps of loyalty. I wasn't someone who let people walk away without feeling the weight of what they'd done. She took my trust for granted. I took my life back. And I didn't just close the door on her, I locked it and threw away the key.